I'm Mike Archero, Chair of Mathematical Sciences, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the first of what we hope will be an annual event, College of Arts and Sciences Alumni Panel Discussion, this year featuring Department of Mathematical Sciences. So I'd like to welcome all the panelists, and I'll briefly introduce them, and then we'll get right to the questions. So we have Colin Longhurst from 2013, who was math and political science double major and currently at University of Wisconsin at Madison, consulting statistician. Joe Langen, class of 2015, currently pursuing a PhD in oceanography and a master's in statistics at the same time. Kelsey Mahachik, who's currently interning at Brickyard VFX, which is film production, and also involved in or pursuing Masters of Fine Arts in screenwriting. Ethan Wester, class of 2017, currently seeking in the job market. We have Abigail Durant, who's class of 2017, math and education. She's currently teaching at Massabesic High School. Amelie Jurkowski, and also Ashley Tiberio, both class of 2017 and both at Roadmap in Portland, which is healthcare optimization around healthcare analytics. And they are informatics specialists. And then Chelsea Blake, class of 2016, currently automation engineer at IDEX, which is biotechnology. So before we get started, I just want to pass along regards of Associate Dean Susan Gray, who's a former chair of mathematical sciences, who regrets she can't be here. In her uncharacteristic words, she's totally bummed that she couldn't be here. So she's away on CAS business, as is our dean, Dr. Hay, who also sends her regards as well. So we'll begin our discussion with some topics about math major. And then we'll move into your UNE experiences and internships and things like that. And then we'll talk about career and graduate school experiences and things like that. And first, I just briefly ask you each to describe, very briefly what you're doing and where you are along the career trajectory. And we'll start with you, Colin.
Alrighty, so.
And you can use the microphone. So it's partially for the recording purposes, not just for the amplification here. So we're all being videoed.
All right, into the microphone. Hello, everyone. All right, so let's see. I graduated in 2013. I began a master's in statistics at UW-Madison in the fall of 2014. It was a fantastic experience. It was difficult, but very rewarding. So I graduated in the spring of 2016, and I began work right after I graduated as a biostatistician in the Department of Biostatistics and Medical Informatics at that same university. To put it to you short, what I do is we offer statistical consulting throughout the entire analytical process. So we help people with power estimation of their experiments, sample size calculations, help them design their experiment. We help write IRB proposals, grant proposals. They go out and gather the data. We help analyze their data. We make all the graphics, tables, and we help write the methods, the results, and the discussion of their actual manuscript. So that's the short of it.
Hi, so as Mike said, I graduated in 2015 with a double major in marine science and math. Now I'm at URI. As Mike mentioned, I'm pursuing a PhD in biological oceanography and a master's in statistics. So what I do is essentially research into quantitative fisheries ecology, which basically means I use statistical methods to model fish populations to figure out how they're responding to climate change, food web dynamics, and actual fishing, so we can be smarter in sustainable fisheries going forward.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I graduated in 2016. So I'm going for my MFA in screenwriting right now, so mainly that's what I'm up to. But my Brickyard VFX internship is just editing, usually commercials. We actually did a shoot for Hannaford in-house, so that was pretty neat to see. And most people don't know what Hannaford is down there, so I was like, Maine.
My name's Ethan Wester, class of 2017, and so I briefly considered a graduate program in oceanography here at UNE. Unfortunately, that did not work out. So right now, what I'm currently pursuing is opportunities in different consulting firms or analytics. So one of the main ones is Google has a program called Google Analytics. That's a very popular program, and so that's what I'm mainly focusing on right now.
Hi, I am Abby. I just graduated this past May, and in late July, I think, I was hired by Massapequa High School, so I am teaching freshman math. I'm teaching algebra, accelerated geometry, and an integrated math class, so I'm a first-year teacher up there.
All right, so I'm Amelie Jurkowski. I also graduated this past May. I work with Ashley, and she started there before me. I just started in August. So, Ashley, what do we do?
Oh my gosh. So, as you can see, Emily's still a little new to this stuff. I'm Ashley Tiberio, graduated this past May, but I was hired by Roadmap in Portland back in March. So I started as an intern, and basically what Roadmap is, it's like a healthcare analytics strategy software company is what we like to call it. And we're working with healthcare overspending and sort of analyzing all of that overspending and how can we fix it. How can we look at physicians and transfer them from a low-value care to a high-value care practice? So what we do is we do mostly client data intake, and then we do data manipulation to sort of mold what they've given us into what they see on our front-end product. And so I started doing that. I've trained Emily on how to do that, and now I'm doing more of like project management, leadership work, and automating the processes we have in place.
Hi, Chelsea. I graduated in 2016. I started working at IDEX in December. So IDEX is a biotech lab. We kind of have three main sections to us. We have veterinary, agriculture, and water. So one cool thing, we test the water for NASA. So the water up in space we actually test. That's just a fun fact I love to throw out there. I don't know. We test agriculture, so we test chickens, eggs, milk, stuff like that. And then the part that I work in is the veterinary practice part. So we create instruments and create tests that will test for different veterinary health issues. So like Lyme disease, heartworm, cancer, stuff like that. I'm an automation engineer, which means I write code that tests other code. So the program that we work on is called IVLS. It takes all of the data from different instruments that we make, and it kind of analyzes it, puts it all for one patient, and makes it pretty so they can look at it. So what I do is I write code that will go in and test the way a normal person would go in and click buttons. It kind of looks like magic because you can like see the buttons being clicked. It's pretty cool. So I go in and it like clicks all the buttons for me and tests it all, and it will tell me if it fails. So we have that run at like 3 a.m. every night. So instead of having a person actually sit there and click every button over and over and over again, day after day after day, we can come in the morning, they can run my tests and see, oh, all of this stuff already passed. We know all of this functionality of the program works. So that's what I do.
Great, very good. And now on to some mathematics, math major type questions. So most or half of our majors in the department are double majors, and half of those actually turned out to be marine science. I don't know if that's still current, but I wanted to ask each of you what led you to become or to declare a math major, and in particular for the doubles, what drew you over to the dark side or from the dark side and led you to appreciate the beauty, the power, the magnificence, and the value of mathematics? You're up, Colin.
All righty. So I was a double major with political science. I always love political science. It leads to some critical thinking, some great reading.
You started as a just to political science?
Just to political science. I thought the math was my hobby, so I just took a couple courses here and there, and then I became a minor. You know, when I became a junior, I started to kind of think about my long-term career opportunities, and I had a lot of discussions with Brian Duff, who's actually in the back, about what can and cannot be done with a degree in political science. And, you know, I just kind of came to the realization that, you know, math is a very wanted skill in the marketplace, and it just opens a lot of doors. So I really wanted to kind of like, you know, make sure that I didn't harm myself in the long term by not changing that minor to a major. So I decided to pursue a major. Both departments were very flexible and kind of like made that work for me. And then ultimately, after I got in the job market, I realized that, you know, math is incredibly important, and that's why I went on to pursue statistics specifically.
Okay, so I came in as a marine science major and then picked up math, I think a few weeks into my freshman year. So I was intending on being a math minor because I thought it would be a valuable skill in marine science. It would look good on my resume later, and I had some transfer credits coming in, so I thought, all right, I'm already part of the way there. And then my research advisor, James Jurkowski, said, well, you have time in your schedule to do a major. You should do a major. And I was like first week freshman, so I tried to humor him, and he sent me up to the math department to talk it out. He sent me to Susan Gray, who many of you know, who made it seem not scary at all and everything would be great. And so like a week into college, I called my parents and told them I was a math major. It ended up being great. It ended up being what I really, really love to do. My research is extremely quantitative, so I couldn't even do what I do today in graduate school without having been a math major. And the math program here really gave me the tools not only to kind of start down that path, but understand what I needed to learn in graduate school. And so that's why now in grad school, I guess I kept the double major thing going.
I'm not a double major, but I did come into UNE as a dental hygiene major, and I switched to the math major in my first semester as a junior. And even though I'm a screenwriter now, I guess I'll just say that like problem solving and like analytical thinking, just the basics like skills that you get from mathematics are always coming in handy in everything you do. So
I'm just going to repeat what they said. I started off in marine science. I was planning on only doing oceanography here. Started talking with all of the math professors because with oceanography, half of it's math anyway. So I said, all right, I'll pick up a minor. And then I had the same exact conversation with Professor Susan Bell. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm a math major now, so double major. And I'm really glad I did because my research fell through. That was really the only thing I had to fall back on. With oceanography, anywhere you go, they really rely on a master's, and a lot of the fields are starting to look for that now, is at least a master's, if not a PhD. So having the math to fall back on and having it be so widely seeked out by everybody for the skills that you learn, it was very valuable, and I wouldn't change that.
So I initially came to UNE as a med bio major, but then during my sophomore year, I got to OChem and realized I did not want to continue on that path. So education was something I was already interested in. So I decided to take an education class, and I absolutely loved it. So I decided I wanted to switch my major. And I had to decide between elementary education, which is kindergarten through 8th grade, or secondary education, which is 7th through 12th grade. And after testing out a few different grades in the actual classroom, I realized I definitely preferred working with older students. But with a secondary certification, then you have to figure out what subject you're teaching. And math was something I've always been interested in, but I didn't really love it until my senior year of high school and even my freshman year here when I started taking calculus classes. But as I took more and more math classes, I realized it was something I love doing. I think that math is super cool, and I want to be able to teach my students that it's super cool and all the cool things they can do with it.
All right, so I always loved math in school. I took summer courses for math starting in high school. I took AP Calc 1 and 2 in high school and tested out of it when I got here. But I came in as a marine science major and kind of had that same oh no moment. I suck at chemistry, so when OChem came, I decided it was time to drop marine science. And since I had always been pretty good at math and I had already tested so far ahead, I wasn't really going to be behind by switching at the end of my sophomore year. And I also took Calc 3 just for fun while I was a marine science major, so I thought that was a sign. So I just switched to math, and I definitely don't regret it.
Wow. I also came in as marine sciences. I picked up my double major in math at the end of my freshman year, and that was a choice I made after I took the first statistics class I had to take, because nobody really says this that much except for, a few people here, but I love stats. I love stats. But so I thought about, how I could use stats with marine biology, and obviously, like Joe over there, you can use it, fish populations, modeling, things like that. So that was my first intent. So I went, got the paper signed. My academic advisor for marine science was like, this is going to be really hard. And I was like, that's why I'm doing it, because I love hard things. And I also love chemistry. So, it all worked out. But I picked it up early enough to be able to do it, and I definitely wouldn't regret it. It's just my thoughts towards what I would use it for changed very much along my path through college, because originally I wanted to mix it in with marine biology, and then eventually, as I took more of the stats classes, I was like, oh, I want to do something with statistical analyses. I want to get my master's in stats. Then I took programming, and I was like, wow, I love this. So how can I put both of these things together? So I ended up, now I'm in data science, so it's a mixture of all of those things that I love so much. And I am not doing anything with marine biology, and that's okay.
All right, so I also was a marine bio major. So if you were to ask my mother what 6-year-old me sounded like, I would have been like, I want to work with the ocean animals. Since I can remember, I wanted to work with ocean animals. So I started out freshman year all gung-ho. I was like, I'm going to do rehabilitation of otters, and I'm going to help the otters. I love otters. My junior year, I finished my math curriculum, and I think it was more of an OCD thing where I was like, I can't stop taking math courses. I've taken a math course every year my entire life. So I just fought with myself a little bit for a while, and then Tenenhouse, I was in his Calc 1 class, and he's like, you're really good at math. And I was like, I guess so. So then I decided to double major. I was like, I guess so. I guess it could help me rehabilitate otters. I don't know. And then I took a MATLAB course with Quinlan. And I remember this one project, we had to create a calculator from scratch. And it just changed my life. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I don't know why I found it so cool, but I found it so cool. So then I started to self-teach myself more and more coding, and I was like, wow, this is cool. And I actually dropped the marine bio major after going through a midlife crisis at age 21, because I was like, this is what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to rehabilitate otters. And my other half of me was like, no, Chelsea, you're not supposed to do that. So I finally, with a little force from Quinlan, decided to drop the marine major, really focus myself on math and coding. And I ended up getting to do a job that gets to work with animals anyways. He did. Just saying. But I ended up getting a job that I get to go into work every day knowing that I'm helping animals anyways. And that was the main thing for me, was I am such an animal lover that I really wanted to know that I was doing something important and I was helping other species. And I still get to do that, and I get to do what I love with coding and get to help animals, and it's just awesome. So kind of got the best of both worlds in the end.
Well, great. I'd like to pick up on two threads there, and it's interesting that you guys, Chelsea and Colin, are bookending here, because You got Colin, the old man, on the panel, and then Chelsea. And also, well, in a conversation with Colin a few hours ago, you had remarked that, you know, if you're good at math, in your view, if you're good at math, you should capitalize on that, you know, because there's value in it. And so that thread, and also the idea of, you mentioned the coding, and when Colin was here, we've since added a couple of courses in computer programming that we didn't have. So Chelsea and Ashley and others had the benefit of those courses. So I'd like to ask you Colin, and also Chelsea, so what experiences you had and what courses are playing out and proving to be very valuable, and what skills, and then what did you wish that you'd been exposed to? And Chelsea, you already mentioned the MATLAB course as being a benefit. But.
Yeah, so unlike the young bucks, I didn't have any programming. So Dr. Quinlan could not kill my passion. No, but so I was here when it was more theoretical, you know, so we had abstract algebra. Oh. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I'm back.
We can probably kill the names here.
So you know, it was more theoretical when I was here. So we had to take abstract algebra, geometry, foundations of mathematics. So unfortunately, I had no exposure to computer programming. And, you know, in graduate school, to be a modern statistician, my job now is probably 40% programming, because everything is done via the computer, because, you know, we have the technology. And it was an incredibly difficult learning curve for me, because I was the only student in my cohort who didn't come in with no I had zero programming. So some people were front-end developers, some people had done MATLAB for almost a decade. So that put me at a disadvantage, but you know, it's easier to be at the bottom because you rise up quicker, because everybody could teach me these things. So it was very difficult, but I mean, I really enjoy programming now. But as far as courses here that really have helped me, you know, linear algebra is incredibly important in the world of statistics and most math. Yeah, absolutely. The Calc series is incredibly important, right? So Calc 1 never goes away, nor should it. It's incredibly useful. Calc 2 as well. Like there's Taylor series play a very important role, especially in like a lot of mathematical statistics. Calc 3 is important, and then of course when I was here back in the day, there was a very cool course on probability, and it was calculus-based probability, and that was like a prereq to get into many graduate programs. So that allowed me to really kind of have an edge up in like the graduate level of math stat.
And Chelsea, you have anything to add on the other end of that? So having been able to take those programming courses, and so how's that benefited you? And also, what have you learned on the job?
So I mean, I probably wouldn't be working where I'm working right now if I didn't take the MATLAB course. Like, I knew nothing about programming before that course, and I took it, and I was like, this is awesome. After I took it, I started to self-teach myself a little bit, just random tutorials online or whatever. When I went in for my interview, they had me like pseudocode in my interview, and they were laughing because the whole time I was actually like pseudocoding in MATLAB. And they're like, are you doing this in MATLAB? And I was like, yeah, I am. What are you supposed to write again? Java. Yeah, they're like, you know this isn't Java, right? And I'm like, oops. But I ended up getting a job anyways. Once I started working, really it was just a lot of learning Java. SQL I learned some of. I wish that you guys would have had the SQL course while I was here, but you got it the year after, so it's kind of rude of you guys, but whatever. Actually right now I'm looking a little bit into graph theory to figure out some like test coverage, to figure out our overall program and what percentage of it we're actually testing. Which is pretty cool. I actually didn't take the graph theory course here, so it's kind of shame on me. So, but yeah, it's kind of what I'm doing now.
Very good. I want to focus a little bit on, unless anyone has anything else to add. And also I want to open up to questions from the audience. Any Any questions on?
So
Yeah.
one thing I could add, it's one thing I've been realizing is, especially with the MATLAB, not a lot of people use MATLAB. It's a lot of JavaScript, things like that. But it's very easy, relatively, to go from one programming language to another than to learn programming altogether. So if there's any possibility of you getting a job in some kind of programming, take any programming or learn or self-teach any programming you can, because you'll have a leg up on somebody who has never learned programming in their life already, because it's just a mindset of how coding works that's relatively universal, even if the language itself is relatively different.
Yeah, when I did my interview, they didn't care that I was accidentally coding in MATLAB. All they cared about is that I knew a language, because like you said, it is so easy. Once you get the mindset of coding, it is very easy to move to a new language and start understanding that. So even if it's MATLAB or SQL or anything else, just learning one language will really help you in the long run, because in a technical field, you're most likely going to use some kind of coding at one point or another.
You know, and we've heard the same thing over and over from employers. We need critical thinkers, problem solvers, that kind of thing. We'll train them. Having some skills, having a language or two, that's the word. Speaking of employers, I was going to ask about how you connected with various employers, and I know that Emily and Ashley and Chelsea all connected with employers at our project login event, which we have another, Career Services is holding another a project login reception with prospective employers, where students of all majors are welcome and can bring resumes and so forth, and check out the job opportunities that are available from various technology employers. And so a number of you guys all connected with your jobs through that project login event. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so when I got out of college, I had the worst job ever. Like, don't even want to talk about it. It was the worst job. And I used to complain to Quinlan about it all the time. And I'm like, why can't I just get a job in programming? Like, what is wrong with me? And one day he texted me and he's like, you have to come down after work, come to this career fair. IDEX is going to be there, because he knew that IDEX is like a dream job of mine. And I was like, I've applied to IDEX a million times. Like, there's no point. But then I came down anyways because he forced me to. And I talked with IDEX, and it worked. And like a week later, I got a message from the recruiter, and they're like, we want to interview you. And I was like, wow, this is really happening. So really, I'm being mean to Quinlan, but I owe him a lot. So and the career fair.
So, if we're calling out professors, I actually have to thank Dr. Archero, because he is the one that asked me to speak at Project Login, because I think I was one of the only people at UNE that had some sort of tech internship at the time. So I went and talked about my experience at UNM, because I interned at UNM for about 2 years. But so I went to Project Login thinking like, oh, I'll just talk about it. I'll influence other students to grab an internship. Like, it's really, really important. And not too many students showed up, unfortunately. Definitely go this year. But so I talked, and there were so many employers there that were like, oh my God, like, you're doing this for your internship, like, you need to come work for us. So it was just a great opportunity to be able to talk to a bunch of people, and Roadmap was there. And at the time, I didn't really understand what they did. But after meeting with them a few more times, I ended up loving it, what they do, and I connected with them there, and then also again at the senior networking dinner, which I think is an annual thing. Hopefully they're doing it this year, yeah.
So I actually did not go to the project login, which Quinlan did yell at me for, and yelled at Ashley to yell at me for not going. And then Quinlan also harassed me during class a lot because I did not go, and gave me some incentives. So I did go to the senior networking dinner with Ashley, and that's when I met our boss from Roadmap. And I actually did not connect with him right away like Ashley did. I decided to apply to some other jobs, which did not go so great. So then I talked to Ashley again, and she kept pushing me to apply there. And eventually I kept stalking Adam enough on LinkedIn.
That's our boss.
So, oh yeah, our boss at Roadmap on LinkedIn. So definitely keep your LinkedIn up to date. It's a great app. Stalked him enough on there that he finally posted something about jobs. So I just gave him my resume and said, please, please, please look at it. So harass people for sure.
Very good. I'll switch gears a little bit and direct some questions at Kelsey and Ethan, who've had different experiences. Kelsey, you were telling me that you worked in a patent law office, and then now you're interning at this video production and also in working with creatives. So what's it like, on the one hand, working with different populations, and also your process in your career journey, which is kind of taken a circuitous route, and also Ethan, your thoughts as well as on that, on the job search and the process.
So when I graduated, I had a really tough time finding a job, basically because I had this mindset that was just like, I want to go to Boston and get a job in Boston. And it's hard to pick a location and then pick which job you want to do. But like the table said down there, LinkedIn like helped me connect with like recruiters and stuff. And Boston's big for law, so the recruiter, when I met with her, was like, I basically only work in law, but the good news is it's patent law, so you get to meet with like a lot of, well, I don't get to meet with inventors because I was a receptionist, but I greeted them and got to know a lot of like, you know, what they wanted to bring to creation. And then like the more I started working there, the lawyers respected me a lot more than their past receptionist who just like got promoted within the company. But they knew I was like a math major and would give me patents to read, and a lot of it was like differential equations. So I knew kind of what was going on, and they could talk to me, but I was the receptionist. Like I was this under the radar intelligent person, they thought. So then I realized I wanted to write, and in the time where I didn't have a job, I was applying to all these like publishing companies, like copywriting positions, not because I was qualified, but just because I was really interested in what the descriptions were. So after a while at the receptionist job, I just on a whim applied to screenwriting schools because none of the copywriting places would really look at me. I didn't have the experience. And then, yeah, I got into Emerson and BU thanks to Tenenhouse's letter of recommendation. And also to Tenenhouse encouraged me to reach out to philosophy teacher David Smith here, who wrote me an amazing letter too. So I have to thank them for that. So I ended up going to BU. I'm in my first semester screenwriting there, and I absolutely love it. It is a switch working with creatives, but they all took me in the same way that the math department took me in when I switched here. So it's always good to see that.
All right, so my advice, I basically have two pieces. One, what you've been hearing is if you have the opportunity to meet with somebody who's a recruiter, do that. Even if you're like, oh, it's not related, I'm never gonna want to work in this, meet with them. It doesn't matter, because there is always going to be some chance opportunity that there's some dream job person there that is going to want to see you. So I've applied to maybe 30 plus applications I've met with, I'm only really going to count one real application. In that one application, I got very close to almost getting the job. So even just them seeing your face, you're very close to getting that job. So even before the interview, if they see your face, get to know you a little bit more, they're not just eyes glazed over scanning a page with a bunch of different resumes, you're not going to stand out. But you meeting with the recruiters and talking to them, you stand out a lot more. So always, because I didn't go to Project Login, and I regret it, because I have no idea all the amazing opportunities that were there. And the second one is, again, a lesson from this panel. Use your resources. Talk to the professors here. Talk to anyone you can, because one of the great ones for me is Tony Santella from the Makerspace. Makerspace is amazing. You guys should all check and have Tony and Mike give you a walkthrough, because they're doing amazing things down there. And if you can get in with them and learn some of the cool things they're doing, they've met with MIT. They've met with big schools that have a lot of weight to throw around. They can get you in with schools like that. They can get you in with organizations and companies that you're interested in working for. That's what Tony's doing with me. He is giving me advice because they all have advice to give. They've all lived a lot longer and gained a lot of experience. So basically, you actually listen to their advice because they have really good advice. And two, the Makerspace is a really good place, especially now because it's exploded. It's a really cool place to see what's going on there. So innocent plug of the Makerspace. I love it there.
Great, very good. And jumping around a little bit, we were talking about internships, and I wanted to ask Abigail about her experience as well. I mean, so we would call it a practicum that you student taught for a whole semester. So that's an internship. It's a practicum. What were your experiences there, and how did that prepare you for the real thing when you got in the classroom?
So I did an entire semester of student teaching where I was in the classroom full-time. I didn't really have any classes here except for maybe once a month we had a meeting of all of the student teachers. So I really kind of got thrown into things head first almost. So I was set up with a cooperating teacher who acted as my mentor, and she helped me really get into teaching and get into writing lesson plans and how to teach stuff. So I ended up slowly taking over her classroom until I was actually teaching all of her classes full time. And it was a lot of work. It was definitely a lot of long days and sometimes feeling like I wasn't going to be a good teacher. But at the end of that, I came out with so much more experience and so much knowledge and so many resources and so many connections I made with other educators and administrative staff through that. So that was really great to have kind of an internship like that built right into the teaching program here. That was a really valuable opportunity.
Very good. And I wanted to read the remarks of an alum, Brittany Dunne, who from class of 2014, who couldn't be here, but she is currently at Geico doing corporate office application systems analyst on the contact center management information team. She does SQL programming and troubleshooting. And in the way of internships, her remarks were that she did an internship with Department of Homeland Security. The only thing I did not, this is Brittany speaking, the only thing I did not talk about, oh no, I just bleeped it out. The only thing I did not talk about in the email, let's see. No, the only thing I did not talk about in the Word document is the internship I had at the Department of Homeland Security. Dr. Quinlan encouraged me to apply, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity and feel this would be a good opportunity for other math undergrad students. If anyone has any questions for me, you can provide my email. Be happy to answer them. So more kudos to Dr. Quinlan. And a plug about the value of internships. We have employers who are, have a great need for for talented people in the form of, they don't care if it's an internship, what do you call it, whatever you call it, they need people to work on projects and so forth. So those opportunities are out there. I wanted to look at, well, let me collect myself here. I wanted to take a poll, who doesn't do any writing at all in their job if you're employed? Yeah. So who does no writing? No. Writing on a computer, we all use a computer these days to write. So I see no hands. So, what I'm hearing also from employers is communication. And, data science, you think that you're sitting there all day coding or something, and it's really, for data analytics, you need to communicate. And so the communication piece is huge, it's what I'm hearing from employers. And I wanted to just hear your thoughts on that, those of you who do a lot of writing. And I'll start with Abby, because I'm thinking you have to do a lot of writing. You have to communicate with different populations. Your co-faculty, your fellow faculty, and the students.
So I interact with many different types of people every single day, whether that's the administration of the school, other teachers in the building, students in the building, the students' parents, whether it's just a weekly email or some kind of just any real communication that I need to send home. So my student teaching really prepared me a lot for that, and in that student teaching experience, I got a lot of different exposure to communication and how to really communicate professionally with all of the different people I would be interacting with. So that's definitely been really important. That is how I interact with everybody every day. So that's something I need to be mindful of.
How about, we'll go to technical writing. So I was talking about, we were talking about LaTeX and R within LaTeX with Colin. You can do LaTeX within R, you can do R within LaTeX. So can you talk a little bit about that? And we can also address just briefly the specific languages we mentioned. Someone said MATLAB not being so widely used, but yeah, actually it depends on which list you look at. So these lists come out. What's the top thing? And a lot of times it's Excel, which we think, oh yeah, Excel is not a sophisticated tool, but it is pretty ubiquitous. So a little bit about the technical writing, the LaTeX for mathematical and technical writing, and also software.
Yeah, so because I work on a lot of manuscripts where, as a statistician, I'm in charge of formally writing up the actual statistical methods and like the results. So this is actually one of the most difficult parts of my job, right? Because in the manuscript, space is very limited, and the researchers always want to like play down the statistics, and they say it's not important. But it's very important to be able to say what you did, despite whether or not it's a simple or a sophisticated model, and you need to mention some of the important assumptions, but you need to do this in like a concise, clever way. And it's actually very hard because you don't want to sound like an idiot, right? Because you're the statistician, clearly the statistician wrote it, so you can't write like caveman sentences. But you also can't just go long form and describe every single step you did. So technical writing is very important. This is something that you kind of, for me myself, like I developed this on the job because in graduate school it's certainly not something that we focus on, and here we don't really focus on it too much because we just don't really have a need. And then to the second point, I do a lot of LaTeX, I do a lot of R, and then there's this program called SWeave in which you can do them together, so you can make like dynamic reports. So within the LaTeX, you have these little chunks of R which can execute and call plots and run different simulations or models. Then that's put in right into your LaTeX document. It's incredibly convenient. I hear that people here are still doing LaTeX, which is super good because it's a great thing to know, and it'll certainly help you down the road.
Great. And any other comments on? Well, Joe, I know that you use LaTeX as well.
Yeah, and since nobody's picked on Quinlan in a while, when we were here, we were unknowingly part of an experiment Quinlan and Tennenhouse did and got a nice paper out of and left us out of the acknowledgments. But I do use LaTeX still all the time. I use R. I use MATLAB. In the research setting, you'll see R, MATLAB, and Python generally. It depends on the field. Physicists tend to use MATLAB and Python more because they're working with kind of bigger data structures. All the statisticians use R. As far as writing, obviously as a scientist, kind of publications are the currency of the realm. So I'm always working on my technical writing as well as a stats person trying to communicate statistical modeling to a room of biologists. That can get challenging, to say the least. And then also, as a scientist, it's important to be able to communicate these ideas, whether they be in written form or verbally, to the public. As a fisheries person, I talk to fishermen and get yelled at by fishermen, trying to tell them why they can't catch a certain fish or what's going to happen to their fishery. And so I've been trying to work on that too as a graduate student. And I think that's why not only as math students should you work on your technical writing, but work up research results, go present, do presentations, get better at actually communicating your results too in that forum.
Yeah, and Joe, while you have the microphone, well, actually, let's go to Kelsey as well, because I was going to ask you about writing. Are you writing with your internship currently?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, screenwriting is going to be involves writing.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I was actually, I was gonna actually bring up a little situation that happened at my patent law firm because lawyers will like to have the first pages of the reference PDF like compiled into one PDF document. So like the first page would be the first page of the first reference. Second page would be the first page of the second reference. And so like since I was a receptionist, I wouldn't have anything really going on. And they'd be like, can you drag this page for 600 references into one PDF pile? And I was like, sure. So I just went on to LaTeX and just whipped up a little like include PDF page 1. And like I typed it out like 600 times, yeah. But then I got to use it for the rest of my time there. And then while they thought I was, dragging the first page to the document every time.
That's a great story.
Yeah. I would do it in like 5 minutes and then, use the rest of the hour that
you wrote a script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they thought it would take me like hours, and then really I went on like Reddit after, and they were like, "Wow, you did that so fast."
Great. That reminds me of a story about Isaac Newton, but I won't go into it. So let me take a break and ask if there are any questions from you all. Anything you want to ask our panelists? Yeah.
I'd say what's the number one thing and like the best thing? What is the best thing and what is the one worst thing about being in the real world right now?
Great question.
Best thing, money. Worst thing, you have to wake up and go to work.
Well, wait, you told me you didn't have to wake up and go to work.
It's on camera. Guys, don't touch the mics. I'll keep them on. Okay, so, yeah. No, I mean, the best thing is that without a doubt, you graduate college and there's just so many options, right? And it's just like, what city am I going to live in? What type of work am I going to do? Am I going to pursue a graduate education? And the sheer amount of decisions is so fatiguing. So I remember graduating and just being like, I don't even know where I'm going. Like, physically, where am I going to live? What am I going to do for work? What am I going to do in the long term? And like, it's very exhausting. So that was the best thing about being where I'm at now is like for the first time it's just so easy. I wake up, I go to work. It's nice. I don't have to think about these existential questions anymore. The worst thing is that, as you're a student, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, oh, it's summer vacation. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to graduate. My light at the end of the tunnel is retirement when I'm 67. There's nothing to look forward to. Yeah, so say goodbye to hopes and dreams.
But let's say you're living with you still have some of the flexibility of the academic lifestyle. We have to say that.
I'm pretty happy now.
Yeah.
Things are better than they were. I mean, the work life is nice.
I'm in graduate school, so I'm not in the real world. I'd say, though, what I really enjoy is as a graduate student, you get a lot of, especially as a PhD student, a lot of opportunity to go out and kind of do your own research, do your own science, come up with your own problems, write your own grants. So it's kind of very freeing. I particularly have an extremely laid-back PhD advisor who kind of lets me do whatever I want. So I really enjoy that aspect of it, but I know that that is a limited time situation.
I feel like one of the best things is getting closer to like that, end goal you maybe have, or like getting to figure out what you really want to do. But at the same time, it's the worst thing because you realize that like that goal keeps, lifting the bar higher and it never really stops. You just keep kind of working towards what you think you want. And like, I don't really think anyone knows for sure what they want to do ever. So I guess that's the best and worst thing.
So I'm going to give a little bit about myself first. I'm a planner. Since I got to college, I had the next 10 years of my life planned out. Obviously, it didn't go as planned, so I'm making a new plan. But the one cool thing about jobs is they're in steps. You have entry level, you have mid-level, and then you have basically the end goal for jobs. So you can think about some of the cool end jobs and say, I want that one, and look at the pathway to get there, because there are a lot of different ways to get there. So I can say, oh, this job it might not be the coolest job, I might not want it forever, but it's going to get me to where I want to go. And I really like that because it gives me a little bit of comfort, because the real world is crazy and ever changing, so it's nice to have a little like stability to hold on to. So it's nice to have that end goal. And the worst thing, I guess, is going to say how kind of confusing and crazy it can be at times. So one thing is enjoy the stability you have, because one thing that I realized once I graduated, I don't want to use the word sheltered, but I got very comfortable in college, because it was, I wake up, I do my classes, I do my homework, and then that's it. There's nothing like overly hard. I know us math majors can disagree that there are hard things about college, but there isn't really anything that hard about college. It's relatively easy. There's not a lot of bumps or anything, so enjoy it while it lasts, because it's very nice.
So right now, I honestly feel like I can say that the job I have now is a dream job. I love waking up at 4:30 and going to school every day. It still feels a little surreal to me. Like, people are letting me teach kids, like, unsupervised. So that's pretty cool. And I still get summer vacation. So I, absolutely love it. I think the worst part is that it still is my first year, and there's so much I am learning every single day. And putting in long hours, and I'm doing a ton of work, but I feel like it is so worth it.
Let's see. The best part for me so far is Ashley paves the way for me, and I follow her. But I don't know. I think the best part right now, our job is pretty cool because you kind of just get to teach yourself stuff, and if you think something's interesting, you can push your coworkers to teach you more, and kind of sets you up pretty good to get experience to move elsewhere when you're ready. Say the worst thing is definitely bills. They suck, especially when people don't teach you what to do with them, like student loans. So ask questions while you can.
I was going to say that the worst thing about adulthood is student loans, even though I haven't started paying them back yet. That's next month. No. But second worst thing is how do you feed yourself? Like, I can't do meal prep. I really can't. I find myself eating pizza the majority of the time, and I'm very unhealthy. I know I need to work on it. But the best thing, college 2.0. But But the best thing for me personally, which is going to sound super nerdy, I really like puzzles, and I really, really love staring at data all day long. So maybe dream job, but definitely places to climb in this job. There's a lot of room for growth, and like Emily said, our job, it's entry level, and it's really specific. Like, you can tell that this job is made for you to learn things and then go off and do something amazing later on. So that's not saying, this isn't a real job. It's saying, get a job like this so you can learn oodles of things and then go impress someone, because, that's what we're doing.
All right, I'm going to do 2 best and 2 worst. So first best, you can get as many animals as you want, and no one is going to yell at you. It's awesome. I own a place, so don't need no landlord. I have 2 dogs, a cat, 2 lizards, and a fish, and we live just very happily in our little life together. Another thing, as I mentioned, is I am working my dream job. As you can tell by all my animals, I love animals, and I get to work making instruments that are going to save my animals' lives, and that's like something amazing to me. I work salary, so I get to walk in whenever I want. I don't have to worry about waking up at 4:30 in the morning. Sometimes I wake up at like 8:45, and I'm like, I guess I'll go into work now. I also have the satisfaction of being able to work from home. As a coder, you can work from home a lot, which is also awesome. Sometimes I just want to cuddle with my dogs all day, and I do that, and it's great. So 2 of the worst things. First is definitely student loans. I swear the more money you make, the more they make you pay on them, and they just don't ever go away. They're awful, but I guess they'll go away eventually. The second worst thing is you'll find yourself falling asleep at like 8:30 at night, and one day it'll like hit you, and you'll be like, wow, I'm an adult. Sometimes my friends will like ask me to go out on like Friday nights or something, and I'll already be in pajamas, like cuddled up on the couch. I fall asleep on my couch pretty much every single night watching like Netflix. I wake up at like 3 a.m. and like crawl myself into bed. It's awful. But yeah, so you're gonna fall asleep real early.
Great. Well, I'd like to, any other questions from any of you all? Well, if not, I'd like to thank our panelists. Thank you for coming.